Hey guys, what's going on? This is Mr. Miles again, here for another chapel this week, and I'm here now behind the middle school gym, sitting and looking at some nice trees and over the soccer field. And it's fitting because I want to tell you guys a story from back when I was in middle school many millennia ago. So flashback to young Mr. Miles, little Ruby, a bit chubbier, a lot smaller. I was in grade 6. I was a good kid. I went to church every week, Sunday school every week. I listened to my parents. Probably could have gone along a bit better with my brother. I ate my vegetables, I did all the stuff. I was a good kid, and most importantly, to me at least, was that I had a clean mouth. I didn't swear or say foul language in general. At this age, a lot of my friends were starting to pick up saying some bad words and some foul language and swearing and in general, but I took pride in the fact that I didn't, and maybe I got made fun of for saying some of the Christian swear words. I was saying things like heck and darn, and most famously to my friends, gosh dang it. But it was whatever. I brushed it off, and I valued keeping my mouth clean, and that's just kind of how I was, and they were getting used to it. Or so I thought. So, one weekend I was going to a friend's house for a sleepover. To me, it was the best thing of being that age, was sleepovers, hanging out, eating snacks, junk food, and staying up late into the night playing video games. And we were pretty much doing just that. We were in my friend's basement playing some video game, and my friends were egging me on, and they were kind of teasing me a bit more than normal. They were making fun of my darns and my hecks and all those Christian swear words a bit more than usual. And they kind of, pushed my buttons enough and pushed me to my limit just enough that I said, you know what, fine. I'm just going to say whatever, and I'm not going to care about keeping a filter on or only saying good language. And so I did. And that whole night and up until the next day when I got home, tired I'm sure, I was using foul, dirty, gross language the whole time. But the thing was that this change in my language didn't only affect the words I was saying. It actually had a larger impact on me in general. It affected my behavior. I was being more rude to my friends in general. I wasn't being compassionate, loving, caring, kind me that I was being normally. I started treating them more harshly. I was saying mean things to them in general, and it was completely changing who I was. And I really noticed this when I got back home the next day, and I just kind of looked at myself and I felt disgusted. Not just because of the words that were coming out of my mouth, but because I didn't feel like myself. I felt myself just completely veering off track and that I wasn't acting like me. So I very quickly 180'd and went back, and next time I saw my friends, I said, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Like, that was a mistake, whatever. And of course, they probably teased me a bit more for that as well, but I was back to my hecks and darns and gosh dang it's before they knew it. But through all this, I kind of learned a really important lesson, that the words I use aren't just words. It's not just a matter of what will offend certain people, what's considered clean, what's dirty. The words that I'm saying that come out of my mouth impact me deeply. They actually have a huge impact on my character, on who I am, and also my spirit and my relationship with God. And that's what I want to talk about today. You see, last week we talked about how the importance of taking every advantage and every opportunity to say good words, and how doing nothing is actually harmful. But this week I want to talk to you guys about the power that words really have. Not just over those we talk to, but also ourselves. I want to talk to you guys about how unhealthy words, unhealthy speech in general, not just swear words, how that can really tear us down, and how important it is to keep our tongues, our mouths, our words in check and under control. So the scripture we're going to be looking at today comes from James 1:26 and also James 3:2-6. And it goes like this. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. And now on to 3:2-6. Anyone who is never at fault in what they say is perfect, able to keep their whole body in check. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships, for example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and it itself set on fire by hell. You see, this passage, this scripture comes from the book of James, and James is one of the most brutally honest, straight to the point, does not beat around the bush books in the Bible, or at least the New Testament, that you're going to find. And it's for this reason that James is actually one of my favorite books in the whole Bible. It's all about putting your money where your mouth is, actually living out our faith, putting action to it. It's about walking the walk. And also, in this case, that we're talking about talking the talk, because there are two main points to the book of James. The first one being that faith without deeds is no faith at all, which is what we talked about last week, more or less. And the second point is that if we don't control our tongues will control us. And that's what we're focusing on today. How our tongues, or the words we use, impact us so strongly. Because get this, James says elsewhere in this book that those who are never at fault in what they say are perfect. Isn't that crazy? And we all know that the only perfect person to have ever lived was Jesus. So that means we all have a lot of work to do with our own words and our own language. And before you say it, no, a solution isn't to just stop speaking entirely. Like we talked about last week, saying nothing at all is harmful and also completely not the point. And while you might already understand the impact that your words have on other people, the people hearing you speak, you might not understand how much your words have an impact on you specifically, even if nobody is around to hear you. Our tongues, the words we choose to use, have the power to completely send us off track in this life. And most importantly, in our relationships with God. And throughout the book of James, James essentially says that there's two main things that cause us to have unhealthy speech. The first reason is an unhealthy spirit, and the second reason is poor self-control. So let's talk about that first thing, an unhealthy spirit. What do I mean by that? Well, I don't just mean anybody who sins or anybody who has any sin in their life, because that would mean that we all have unhealthy spirits and we would all be constantly saying bad things. What I mean by unhealthy spirit is if you or anybody has significant feelings of hate, selfishness, unforgiveness, bitterness, just cooking around and lashing out inside of you, causing it to boil up and come out of your mouth. That's the kind of thing I mean. And secondly, poor self-control. Because even somebody with a really, really healthy spirit who has poor self-control can oftentimes slip up and say some really bad things that can cause a lot of damage. A great spirit in a moment of frustration, anger, impatience, or stress can say some things that they really shouldn't, that they just kind of slip out. Yes, maybe you may have seen this from your parents or somebody else. It happens. And in either case, either from an unhealthy spirit or poor self-control, these unhealthy, bad words that can come out of us have a huge impact, negative impact on ourselves and also the people who are around to hear them. To illustrate this, I actually just want to kind of use one that James already used. Oh, the sun is so bright. An illustration, a bit tweaked, that James already uses in this book. So right here, this is a tree. I have absolutely no idea what kind of tree it is. Maybe one of y'all can shout in the chat what kind of tree this is, because I have absolutely no idea. But for the purposes of this illustration, this right here is going to be an apple tree. So now, picturing that this is an apple tree, what are you picturing on it to make it an apple tree? How in your mind can you tell that a tree is an apple tree? It's pretty simple. If it has apples on it, you know? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day what its trunk looks like, what its roots look like, or anything. If it's got apples on it, then it's an apple tree. I mean, unless somebody like taped or glued apples to it, but I don't think that would happen. So we know it's an apple tree because it has apples on it. But now, how can we tell if it's a healthy apple tree or a good apple tree? Well, you would take an apple from the tree and you would eat it, take a bite. And if the apple tastes sweet and delicious and good, then you conclude that yes, this is a good, healthy apple tree. Because maybe some of the roots are a bit here or there, it's growing in a weird way. There could be some weird kinks to it, but at the end of the day, if it's producing good apples, then it doesn't matter. And you can successfully, effectively say that it's a healthy apple tree. But here's the thing. You know, sometimes even the best of apple trees can have a few bad apples on them. Every now and again you might find an apple that's getting rotten. It might have a worm in it. It might have gone bad or have some mold on it, whatever. And the thing is that these kinds of apples, if left unchecked, can spread. That they can spread their moldiness and badness to the other apples on the tree. So then, the owner of the apple tree, the farmer, I don't know, what's the name of people who take care of apple trees? I don't know. The owner of the apple tree, the farmer, will have to come and inspect the tree and keep close watch and pick off the bad apples so as to keep the tree healthy. Because if a customer or whoever just came by and took an apple from the tree and took a bite and it was a bad one, it could make them sick. It would really gross them out and it could really just ruin their day. So what's the point with all this? Why am I talking about apple trees? The point is, I want you guys to think about how this tree is like your spirit. An apple tree is like your spirit. And just like the health of the apple tree is determined by its fruit, the words that are coming out of our mouths will determine the health of our spirit. And how even if we have a healthy spirit, if we're not keeping close watch for a bad word that might come out here or there under bad circumstances, that can spread and become a larger problem and effectively making our spirits unhealthy anyway. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of our apple trees. We need to make sure that they're healthy, that there's no worms or bugs getting at it. There's nothing significant deterring it and causing the fruit to get bitter. We need to make sure that our spirits don't have any significant bitterness inside them. They don't have any significant hate, unforgiveness, selfishness, all these things that can just really make our words sour and unhealthy. I'm not saying we need to be perfect because there are no perfect apple trees. What I'm saying is we just need to take out the large things that are threatening our words. And then once that's done, we need to keep watch and be looking for any bad words that can sprout out here and there. We need to be good apple farmers or word farmers and keep close control over every word that comes out of our mouth or might be close to coming out of our mouth. Because if we don't control our words will control us. And unhealthy words come from unhealthy spirits. And also poor self-control. So I want you guys today to start paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth. The words that you say to your friends, the words you say to your family, to your siblings, your parents, the words that you say even just by yourself when no one's watching. And know the question to ask yourself isn't what I'm saying a swear word. That's not really the point or what I'm trying to get at here. I want you guys to ask yourself, is what I'm saying uplifting? Is what I'm saying right and good? Would I say this directly to God? Would I say this directly to my parents or people I respect? Are these words reflective of the person I want to be? And are these words taking me in the right direction? And if after analyzing yourself, you determine that your words are good and you can be proud of them, that's great. Keep it up. But if they're not, ask yourself, why is that? Is it that I've got some problems deep down, an unhealthy spirit that's causing these to come up? Or do I just have really poor self-control and I need to work on that and keep a close watch? In either of those scenarios, pray to God and ask for help. These aren't things that can really change overnight, or at least not usually, and we really, really need God's help with it. Because just like me when I was in grade 6, if we let our words get away from us, it can really be detrimental. It can really start steering us in the wrong direction and make us people who we aren't. Thank you guys so much for watching this week. I hope you're enjoying chapel, and I'll see you again next time.